Shalom, it's Izzy, your Hebrew teacher here, and this is Hebrew Chapters with Holy Language Institute. We are going to be doing something different for the next several studies. Usually, we read through a chapter of the Torah, the first 5 books of Holy Scripture written by Moses, but in these episodes, we are going to be reading through the longest chapter in the Bible. And before you run away, I will let you know this. We're not going to be reading it all in one sitting. We're going to break it up into a series of readings. This chapter is actually a song, a love song that someone wrote to God and to God's Torah, to his teachings, to his law, and it's written in a very fascinating way in Hebrew. See, you can see here, this is Psalm 119, that in the first 8 lines, each word begins with the letter Aleph. In the next 8 lines, each word begins with the letter Bet. And so it goes all the way through the song. There are 22 sections. Each section has 8 lines that start with the same Hebrew letter. Now, of course, this is something you will totally miss in the English. I thought you would enjoy learning these words that start with the same Hebrew letter. This is poetry, so it's really nice reading. It's relatively simple, nice, simple lines of poetry, but there are also instances where a unique vocabulary is employed, because that's something poetic, to use a different set of words than what you would normally use. You'll also notice sometimes in this poem something called parallelism. That's a device in Hebrew literature where you basically say the same idea twice, but you use a different set of words or phrases in the first and then the second time that you express it. That's like parallel lines, basically. You'll notice some of that in here also. So let's pray, and we'll get started on this Hebrew chapters adventure. Thank you, Elohim God, for your holy word. Thank you for the relationship that we have with you. Thank you for the relationship that your people have had with you for thousands of years. Thank you that we can read this love song that was written to you and your word so long ago, and that continues to resonate in the hearts of your people today. Thank you for your Torah, for your commandments, for all the things described here. I pray that as we read through this, we could learn Hebrew better, but I also pray that a new flame would be kindled in our hearts for you, a new flame of passion for you and for your word, for your Torah. Thank you. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your Ruach, your Spirit within us right now. Amen. So, we will just begin reading through this Psalm 119, word by word. I will identify the 3-letter verbal roots for you, and then you can see the different forms that they take. If you haven't learned how to read Hebrew with me, I encourage you to learn how to read Hebrew with me in the 40 Lessons of Hebrew Quest at holylanguage.com. These Hebrew chapter studies go hand in hand with the 40 Lessons of Hebrew Quest. So let's begin. Ashrei. Now, this word is usually translated as happy or blessed. I think ArtScroll, a traditional Jewish translation, renders it, if I'm not mistaken, as praiseworthy, but that's something of an exception. We're actually going to park for a relatively long time on this first word and break it down because it's only used once in the Torah. And because a lot of these Hebrew chapter studies are in the Torah, it's highly improbable that you'll get it there. So I want to go over it because happiness is a big idea. I mean, really, what's the American dream? It's the pursuit of happiness. And different people have wildly varying definitions of happiness. Maybe it would be worthwhile asking, what is the scriptural definition of happiness? This guy who wrote this love song, what was his understanding and experience of happiness? So that's what we're going to be looking at here for a bit. I'm also going to give you a series of verses in the writings of Yeshua's apostles, the New Testament, as that body of literature is commonly called, where it uses this parallel term, the underlying Hebrew term and thought there. So let's begin to break that down here. The verbal root for this word ashrei is ashar. And it's a verb that means to call someone happy or blessed. It also can mean to proceed, to go in a specific direction. And it can mean to guide or direct, which makes sense. You're helping someone to proceed. You're guiding them in a specific direction. Now, notice that in Hebrew thought, there is a very close connection between happiness and progress, between happiness and moving in a specific direction. Moving forward, you could say. So notice that first of all. I'll give you two nouns that come from this verb ashar, to be called happy or blessed, or to proceed in a specific direction, as we're talking about here. One is ashur, and the noun ashur means a footstep. So your ashurs are your footsteps. You can see the similarity there. Your footsteps are going somewhere. They're going in a direction. The other noun I'll give you, well, it's not actually a noun. It's a word. It's the word asher, and it means who, that, or which. So, for instance, in Psalm 1, it says, Ashrei, happy is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, etc. And where it says who, happy is the man who, the word there is asher. And it's a very common word in Hebrew. And as I mentioned, like, it can mean who, that, or which. It functions as a relative conjunction, introducing the predicate, grammatically speaking. It can also, in addition to meaning who, it can mean what or when also. So that's, and here's the thing though, like, I may have lost you there when starting to talk about grammar, but basically that word asher, it's like a footstep that points towards the next word. It helps the sentence to go in the direction that you want it to go, from the subject to the predicate. So even the word asher, grammatically speaking, is a picture of this. So we have that verb, ashar. We also have a very closely related Hebrew verb that further helps us to understand the Hebrew understanding of happiness. And that word is yashar. Yashar means to go straight or to be smooth. I'll give you a couple examples of this verb yashar. In Proverbs 3:6, it says, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths what? Straight. Yashar. In Isaiah 40 verse 3, it says, a voice is calling, make smooth, yashar, in the desert a highway for our God. So those are a couple examples of how the verb yashar means to be straight or smooth. Now, I will give you a couple nouns that come from this verb that will help you to understand it and help you to understand more fully the Hebrew concept of happiness. You have the noun, mishor, which is a plateau, a plain. It's also translated as level place, level ground, or level path. So when you think of yashar as straight or smooth, it makes sense that would be the root for this geographical term, mishor. We also have the noun meshal, which can also function as an adverb. As a noun, meshal means equity. Something that is straight, that is smooth, that it was on the level, so to speak. As an adverb, meshal, which I think is often used in the plural, like meshalim, is used to mean smoothly. So again, it's a very related concept. And then finally, I'll give you one more usage of this word. It's in a nickname that God had for Israel, mostly used in the book of Deuteronomy, and also used once, if I'm not mistaken, in the book of Isaiah. In English, it's Jeshurun. In Hebrew, it's Yeshurun. And the root of it is Yashar. Most scholars believe this nickname that God had for Israel, probably like an affectionate pet name, you could say, has the sense of like Israel at its best. Israel, when the nation is going straight forward in its walk with God, when it is on the level, covenantally speaking, with the Holy One. So that hopefully will give you a fuller understanding of the Hebrew understanding of being ashrei, of being happy, of being blessed. Hopefully that gives you some practical content also that you can think about how that may apply in your own life. Now, I'm going to give you a series of scriptures in the New Testament, in the writings of Yeshua's apostles, where people are described as being blessed, because the underlying Hebrew word there is ashrei, this very word, the word for happy. The one that probably comes to mind right away for you is Matthew chapter 5, Yeshua's Sermon on the Mount, where he says, blessed or happy or ashrei are the poor in spirit, those who mourn, the gentle, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, and those persecuted for righteousness. That's in Matthew 5, verses 3 to 11. He says, these people are ashrei. Happy are they. Then in the book of Luke chapter 6, verses 20 to 22, there's a parallel passage where Yeshua says something quite similar. Ashrei, happy are those who are poor, etc. Now, the interesting thing actually in the Gospel of Luke is it says that this was a different occasion. It says that Yeshua came down with them and stood on a, quote, level place in Luke 6:17. What's the Hebrew word for a level place? Remember, we learned that one? Mishol. A mishol is a level place, and it comes from that verb root yeshal, remember? So it's kind of neat that Yeshua was talking about who is ashrei as he spoke on a mishor, a level place. There's a linguistic connection there if you're reading that story in Hebrew. So I will read you several verses now from Yeshua's apostles along those lines. In Matthew 11:6, Yeshua says, ashrei, blessed is he who doesn't take offense at me. In Matthew 16:17, Yeshua says, ashrei, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, but my Father who's in heaven. In Luke 1:45, Elizabeth, the cousin of, or Elisheva, as we'd say in Hebrew, the cousin of Mary, or Miriam, says, ashrei, blessed is she who believed that there would be fulfillment of what had been said to her by Adonai. That's in Luke 1:45. And now this is interesting. The Greek word there is makarios. Makarios is the word that's translated as blessed in these instances. There are two other instances in this dialogue between Elisheva and Miriam in the book of Luke chapter 1, where the word blessed is also used. And interestingly enough, the Greek word there is eulogeo, but it's the same idea. So I'll read those two to you also. Luke 1:42, it says, Elisheva cried out with a loud voice and said, ashrei, blessed are you among women, and ashrei, blessed, is the fruit of your womb. Then in Luke 1:48, Miriam is speaking, and she says, for behold, from this time on all generations will call me ashrei, blessed. This is actually something of a theme in the book of Luke. Here's a couple more scriptures where people are asking this question: who is truly ashrei? Who is truly happy? In Luke 11:27 and 28, it says, while Yeshua was saying these things, one of the women in the crowd raised her voice and said to him, ashrei, blessed is the womb that bore you and the breasts at which you nursed. But he said, on the contrary, ashrei, blessed are those who hear the word of God and observe it. In Luke 14:15, it says, when one of those who were reclining at the table with Yeshua heard this, he said to him, ashrei, blessed is everyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God. We have several instances of this in the Gospel of John too. I'm not going to give you every instance here where this is mentioned. I'm just giving you a highlight of them so you can see that this Hebrew word and this Hebrew idea is a theme in the New Testament also, a Hebraic theme. In the Gospel of John 13:17, Yeshua says, if you know these things, you are ashrei. You are blessed if you do them. In the Gospel of John 20:29, it says, Yeshua said to him, that is Thomas, because you've seen me, have you believed? Ashrei, blessed are they who didn't see and yet believed. And then also in the Gospel, in the book of the Acts of Yeshua's Apostles, chapter 20, verse 35, it has a quote attributed to Yeshua that isn't actually recorded in the Gospels. This is the Apostle Shaul, or Saul of Tarsus, speaking, and he says, in everything I showed you that by working hard in this manner, you must help the weak and remember the words of the Master Yeshua, that he himself said, it is more ashrei, more blessed to give than to receive. And then I will leave you with one more quote from the writings of Yeshua's apostles. The book of Revelation uses this word several times throughout it. In fact, it opens with this word, Ashrei. Blessed is he who reads, and those who hear the words of the prophecy and heed the things which are written in it. It says in Revelation chapter 1, verse 3. So that's a theme that I would invite you to search out further if you're interested in learning about that. So let's keep reading here and see what this psalm says about true happiness. Ashrei, happy or blessed are those. Tamimei, verb root there's tamam, and it means to be finished, to be at an end, in the sense of being perfected or complete. So happy are they who are perfect, you could say. Darech, verb root there darach means to tread or walk. So the derech is the way in which you walk. It is the path upon which you tread. So you could understand that as happy are those who are perfect in the way. Ha-holchim, verb root halach, to walk. So ha-holchim, those who walk. Be-torat, now this is the construct. What that means is the something of. It means the something of. So the Torah of. Can you hear the at on the end? That means the Torah of. Torah is usually translated as law in most English translations, and that is a bad translation because Torah does not mean law. There's another Hebrew word that means law, and we will encounter that in a couple verses. Torah is better translated as instructions or teaching. And unfortunately, the law of God got something of a bad rap because of this mistranslation. It's something I'm passionate about pointing out. So please join me in rediscovering God's law, not as legalism, but as God's instructions for his people, God's teachings. The verbal root here for Torah is yara, and it means to rain, as in like rain falling from the clouds to the earth, to shoot an arrow or sling a stone, to point in a direction, or to instruct. That's what the verbal root for Torah means. And so here we have, it's the Torah of, and then we have the name of God, spelled Yod He Vav He. Most scholars believe God's name was originally pronounced Yahweh. For the last couple of thousand years, Jewish people haven't been pronouncing God's name and have said Adonai, which means my master, or Lord instead. So in these Hebrew chapter studies, I follow the Jewish tradition of saying Adonai, but if you use God's name, I invite you to do that. Just do it reverentially and in appropriate context, please. So, those who walk in the Torah of Adonai, of the Lord. Ashrei, there's our word again. Happy are they. Notzrei, verbal root here is netzal, and it means to keep, preserve, or reserve. It's like a word that has the sense of keeping or guarding, but it's a different one than the one that would normally be used, which is shamar. This one has the sense of preserving, or it's even translated reserve once, as I'd mentioned. ArtScroll translates it in some places as cherish, which I really like, actually. I really like that sense. So here it says notzrei, so those who natzar, those who let's just say keep or cherish, edotav. So the verb root there, adas, to witness, or to testify, to bear witness. So here we have that would also be the noun, eda, it would be a testimony. So here we have edotav, so his testimonies. Bechol, in all. Lev, heart. Yidoshuhu. The verbal root there is darash, and in various places in the scriptures, the verbal root darash is translated as seek, inquire, search carefully, care, investigate, look for, study, consult, and ask. It's a pretty packed word. So it says, B'chol lev, with all their hearts, yidoshuhu. They will darash, they will seek him. Af, that could be understood as moreover. Lo, the negative, fa'alu, so they don't pa'al. That verb there, pa'al, just means to work. So they work no avla, unrighteousness. or injustice. B'dorachav, so in his derechs, in his ways, halachu, they halacht, they walked. Ata, you. Tzivita, verbal root there, tzava, is to issue a command or an order. So you have commanded or issued your fikudecha. The verbal root there is pakad, and it's a big word in Hebrew, and it's used in quite a wide variety of applications. I would encourage you to look it up in, let's say, Strong's dictionary and just see for yourself how many different ways this word is translated. It's translated in the New American Standard Bible as precepts, so we'll just go with that. But it can have the sense of appointing, it can have the sense of caring, it can have the sense of visiting, it can have the sense of being like appointed, like I had said. So precepts are, some things that are appointed. So we'll just read that as precepts. So you have commanded your precepts, lishmol. Now there's the verbal root for guard that is most typically used, keeping in the sense of guarding. So to guard them, me'od. Now this word is usually translated as very. For instance, if you want to say very good, you say tov me'od. Here, me'od has the sense of especially or exceedingly or very much. So they are to be especially guarded. Let's read that as achalai. This is a very rare word, actually, and there's some question among scholars about what it means, or not so much what it means, but where it came from, what the verbal root is. Gesenius believes that it's actually a contraction of ach, which is an exclamation, like almost like we'd say ah in English. In Hebrew, you'd say ach, because, well, why wouldn't you get in that nice horky sound of whenever possible? Ach. So it has that sense, and then the lai would be related to lu, which means if only, essentially. So like achalai would have the sense of like if only I could wish, or I wish. That's the sense that achalai has. So that's Gesenius' idea. There is the verbal root yachal, which is spelled yod chet lamed, and it means to wait or to expect. I surmise that it probably comes from that verbal root. Because achalai, it has the sense of like I'm wishing for something. Oh, that this could be. It has the sense almost of like I'm waiting for this. I'm expecting it. So achalai, oh that yikonu. Verbal root there is kun, and it means to establish. So oh that will be established drachai, my derechs, my ways. Lishmol, to shamar, to guard. Chukecha. Now, there's the Hebrew word for law, which is chok in the singular. Here we have chukecha, your choks, your laws. It comes from the verbal root chakak, which means to cut, carve, inscribe, or engrave. So you can imagine laws that are being written down through the act of cutting, carving, inscribing, engraving. Those are chukim. So if you write one of those, that is a chok. So that is the Hebrew word for law. Torah is not the Hebrew word for law. Just to make that clear. Az, then, lo, the negative, evosh. The verb root there's bush, and it means to be ashamed, embarrassed, that kind of idea. So lo evosh, I won't be ashamed. Be habiti, be in my, and then habiti here. The verbal root is nabat, and it means to, not just to look, but like to gaze or to stare, a prolonged and focused look. So I like the word gaze personally. So let's use that here. So bahabiti, in my gazing, or when I gaze, el, to kol, al mitzvotecha, your mitzvot. A mitzvah is a commandment, so, or a command. So mitzvotecha is your commands. Odcha. Od is like until. This is a little clunky actually to try translating. Beyosh. Oh, sorry. Actually, in this case, odcha is from the verbal root to thank or to praise or literally to verbally confess. It's the same root for the name of Judah, which is Yehudah. So here we have that odcha. I will thank you. I will praise you. I will confess to you. Beyoshel. There's that. Remember that verbal root yashar? So remember, we have the Hebrew word here for happy, which is ashal, that verbal root, happy because you are moving in a specific direction, happy because you are going on or forward. And then we have that, remember we learned that related word, yashar, which means straightforward or smooth. So here we have biyosher. So in straightforwardness, or I think it's probably usually translated as uprightness of levav, heart. Now, some translations render this verb root yashar when it relates to a person's character as honesty, and I think that's a great translation, to be honest. So I think to be able to translate that as I will thank you beyosher levav, with an honest heart. That's a great translation. So remember that when you have that verb root yashar, it can often have the sense of honesty. Now, many translations use the word upright, but like honestly, who uses the word upright on a daily basis? It's not a word that people use in English to describe other people. We talk about someone who's good as being honest, but you don't generally refer to someone as upright. I mean, I don't know, what is that? It sounds like something at the end of a football field, and that just, it doesn't ring in our culture. So remember that when you see the word upright in, let's say, the New American Standard Translation or something like that, just replace that in your mind with honest, and it will probably mean a little more to you. So here he says, I'll thank you with an honest heart, belomdi. So in my lamading, in my learning, a disciple in Hebrew is a talmid, and it comes from that same verb root, lamad, to learn. So Yeshua's talmidim, his disciples, were those who were learning from him. So belomdi, in my learning, mishpatei, verb root, there's shafat, to render a legal decision or to judge. So mishpatei, mishpat is a judgment, a legal decision, and here we have mishpatei, so the plural construct, meaning the judgments of. Or you could maybe even read that as the legal decisions of tzidkecha. Now the verb root there is tzedak, and it means to act rightly or justly. And the verb root can also have the sense of being legally exonerated or justified, or proven or declared innocent and right. Let's say in a legal setting or in a court case. So here we have tzidkecha, which is like your righteousness. Et chukecha, so your chokes, your laws, eshmol, I will shamar, I will guard. All, don't. Ta'azveni, verbal root azav, to leave or forsake, so don't leave me. Ad, literally like until or up to, meod, which remember has the sense of like very or exceedingly. So how would you translate that? Al ta'azveni ad me'od, don't leave me until very. I think New American Standard translates that as do not utterly forsake me, and that's a good translation. Reading on into the bet section. Just so you know, we're going to be reading 5 letters today, so and then we'll stop. So we're not going to read this whole psalm, so don't worry. You don't have to go and get the popcorn. You will not be here for hours. Bameh, in what? Yizakeh, verbal root there, zacha, means to be clear, in the sense of being pure or innocent. So in what? Will make clear or pure or innocent. Na'al, which is a youth. ArtScroll translates that as youngster, which I like. Et, indicating what the youth is making clear or pure. Alcho, the verb root there, arach, has the sense of like your way, your path, especially like a habitual path or an established way, like maybe even a cycle, that kind of idea. So, with what shall a youth make clear his way? You could read it like something like that, or make it innocent or pure. Lishmol, to shamar, to guard. Ke devarecha, like your devar, your word. Bechol, in all. Libi, my lev, my heart. Now you'll notice the word heart is already being used, and there are 2 different forms of it. The long form, the full form, is levav. You can see that right there. Levav. Then the short form is lev, or as you see here, when you say my lev, you say libi. So bechol libi, with all my heart, which of course is a very nice romantic phrase. It's perfect to use in a love song like this. Darashticha, I have or I will. Darash you, seek you. Al, don't. Tashgeni. A verb root there is shaga, and it means to make a mistake, to err, or to stray, unintentionally. So al tashgeni, like don't let me err or stray, mitzvotecha, from your mitzvot, from your commands. Without further ado, let's skim over here and we'll continue reading. See, look it's even written in English letters for you, just so that you really know that this is indeed Psalm 119 that we're reading on. Libi, in my lev, my heart, tzafanti, so I tzafand, which means I hid, I concealed, I stored up, imratecha. Now the verb root here is amal, and it means to say. It's similar to the Hebrew root word deval, which is also like to speak or communicate. So here we have an imra is the noun, and it's basically like something that he said. An utterance is probably how it's translated. So in my heart, I stored up imratecha, your utterance. Lema'an, so that. Lo, the negative. Echeta, verb root there is chata, usually translated to sin. It's literally a term used in archery or slinging a stone. What would that be called? Slingery. When you shoot your arrow or you sling the stone and you miss your target, you miss the mark. And that came to be the word for sin, the concrete meaning there. So lema'an, so that lo echeta, I won't sin lach, to you. Baruch. Now this is interesting. Your knee in Hebrew is your berech. The act of bowing the knee came to be associated with blessing. So when you bow the knee to someone, you are blessing that person. So here we have baruch, blessed, ata, are you, Adonai. Now this is a very, very common phrase in the Jewish tradition of prayer. Pretty much every bracha, every blessing in Hebrew begins with baruch ata Adonai. Blessed are you, Lord, Adonai. So anyway, it's just kind of neat that phrase is in this love song. Blessed are you, Adonai. Lamdeni, so lamad me, learn me. That sounds really southern. Teach me would probably be a better translation. Chukecha, so your chokes, your laws. Bisfatai, now your safa is your lip. Bisfatai, with my lips. Sipalti, verb root there is sefal, and it literally means to count. It can also have the sense of recounting something. So here, with my lips, I counted, or I sefared, I recounted. Kol, all, mishpatei, the judgments or legal decisions of ficha. Your peh is your mouth. So here we have ficha, your peh, your mouth. Kind of a poetic line. It begins with talking about his lips, ends with talking about the Holy One's mouth. B'derech, in the way, edotecha, of your edot, your testimonies, sasti. Verb root there's sus, and it means to rejoice, to be glad. In the way of your testimonies I rejoiced. Ke'al, like literally that's like on, kol, all hon, wealth. So it's like someone who rejoices over all wealth. Befikudecha, so in your pikuds, in your precepts, asicha. Verb root here is siach, and it's quite a fascinating word actually. It's a little bit broad. I'll explain it for you here. Siach is translated in different places in the Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures, as sing, talk, complain, sigh, and meditate. Now, it's translated here as meditate, but that gives you a better sense of meditation in Hebrew. Meditation in Hebrew can be singing. Meditation in Hebrew can be talking, either to yourself or to someone else. Meditation in Hebrew can almost have the sense of complaining. Like if you've ever heard someone mumbling and grumbling to themselves, complaining like that, that's the picture in Hebrew of meditation. It's like your self-talk, what you're busy mumbling to yourself. That is meditation in Hebrew. And when you sigh, when you just naturally let out a sigh, that is a picture in Hebrew of meditation, your breath. So that hopefully gives you a better understanding of the Hebrew concept of meditation, the act of meditation, what it looks like. So here he says, I will meditate in your precepts. Ve'abita, and I will nabat, I will gaze, orchotecha, on your orachs, your ways, your circuitous ways. You may remember that word from earlier. Bechukotecha, in your chuk. Well, here it's like chukot. It's usually actually in the other form in the chukim. So anyway, in your laws, esh ta'asha. Now this is fascinating. It's doubled up. The verbal root there is sha'a, shin, ein, and this verbal root sha'a is translated in other places in the Tanakh as to play, like if a child were to play, to stroke, to fondle, or to delight in. So it's a fascinating word, really. Like for him to use this verb in relation to God's laws. He's like, in your laws I will play. In your laws I will stroke and fondle, like that kind of sense. It's not actually usually translated that way. Most translators rendered it as in the slightly more generic, I will delight in your laws. ArtScroll translates it as, I will occupy myself with your laws. Occupy myself. But anyway, that gives you a fuller sense of that word. Lo, the negative, eshkach, so I won't shakach, I won't forget, devarecha, your devar, your word. Moving on to the gimels. Gemol. This verb gemol has the sense of benefiting someone, of being generous with them, of being bountiful with them. Look it up. It's fascinating how different translations render it. But that's the big idea. So let's read that as be generous. Be generous all on avdecha. Verb root avad means to work for or serve. It can also have the sense of worship, although worship has its own word. So work for or serve is best. So a servant is an eved in Hebrew. So here we have avdecha, your eved, your servant. So be generous with your servant. Echya, I will chaya, I will live. So that's very compact. He's saying be generous with your servant and I will live. But in Hebrew it just says be generous on your servant, I will live. You may remember Adam named his wife Chava, Eve, as it's said in English, because she was the mother of all the living. So you can hear that verb right there. Ve'eshmara, and I will shamar, I will guard, devarecha, your devar, your word. This is a lovely line here. Gal, it's the short form. The full form would be galal, and it basically means to rule. Einai, your ein is your eye. If you were to say my ein, you would say einai. So gal einai, it literally means like rule my eye. And roll and has the sense here of uncovering something, rolling back the cover. So you could read that as like uncover or unveil my eye. Ve'abita, and I will navat, I will gaze. On what? Niflaot. The verbal root there is pala, and it means to separate. And it has the sense of something that is separate in the sense of being remarkable or distinguished or a wonder. That's usually how it's translated. Niflaot is usually translated as wonders. It has the sense in Hebrew of the supernatural, like a miracle. In fact, niflaot can have that meaning of miracles. And so that makes sense too, because the supernatural is the dimension beyond. It is separate from and yet directly affecting the physical dimensions of space and time. So you can see how the supernatural and miracles, that's what they literally are in Hebrew. They're things that are separate. They're things that are distinguished from the dimensions of space and time. So niflaot, so just so far, so we get this idea. So he says, unveil or uncover my eye, and I will gaze, niflaot, on miracles. Let's read that as mi Toratecha, from your Torah. Ger. A ger is I like to translate as an immigrant, because that's probably the most functional translation, but it has the sense of like a sojourner or a stranger or an alien, a traveler, that kind of idea. Ger, he says, that's me. Anochi, usually if you want to say I or me in Hebrew, you say ani. Here he says anochi, which basically means like I myself. It's slightly more emphatic. Va'aretz, in the eretz, in the land or in the earth. All, don't. Tastil, verb root setar, to conceal. So don't conceal. Mimeni, from me. Mitzvotecha, your mitzvot, your commands. Galsa. This is a very rarely used verb. I think this is the only one of 2 times it's used. The other places in the Book of Lamentations, in reference to what happens to your teeth if you eat a bowl of gravel. If you try and eat gravel for breakfast, what is going to happen to your teeth? Well, that's this word. They will garas. So what does that mean? It could mean they will crack, they will break, they will shatter, they will something like that. So anyway, he says galsa. Let's read that as just shattered. Nafshi, my nefesh, which is my soul. It can have the sense of your person. It can have the sense of your physical life, especially your appetites and your desires. So here we'll just read it as soul. So galsa nafshi, my soul is shattered. Leta'ava. Ta'ava is like longing or craving. You may remember there's a story about the people of Israel in the wilderness, and they craved, and they were given their craving. I think it was for meat, but in the process, many of them died. And so they buried them there, and they named that area the graves of greediness. In an anglicized form of the Hebrew, there's kibroth hata'ava, and then in Hebrew it's kivrot hata'ava. So there's this word for craving, for a strong desire, and it's the word that's used here, ta'ava. So he says, it's like it literally says la ta'ava, for craving, but it has the sense of like with craving. My soul is shattered with craving. El, to mishpatecha, to your judgments, your legal decisions. V'chol, in all 8 times. Ga'alta, verb root there is ga'al, and it means to rebuke. Zedim, which is the arrogant or proud. And actually, interestingly enough, the verb root there's means to boil, to seethe. So if you can imagine people who are boiling, who are seething, who are raging, so to speak, and therefore are arrogant in that way. That's that word. You have rebuked the proud, arolim. The verb root there, aral, is just your run-of-the-mill Hebrew word for cursed or cursing. So here we have arolim, which is like the cursed. Hashogim, verb root there is shaga, to err, to want to stray. Mimitzvotecha, from your mitzvot, your commands. Gal, remember we encountered this verb root earlier. Gal enai, uncover my eye. It has the sense of rolling. Here, it has the sense of rolling more explicitly. Gal, roll. Me'alai, from on me. Chelpa. What is chelpa? It's basically disgrace. The verb root is charaf, and the verb root charaf means to taunt, insult, defy, and reproach someone. So the noun that comes from that verb here is chelpa, and it has the sense of disgrace or reproach. So he says, roll from on me, disgrace, vavuz. And then here we have another word. The verb is buz, and it means to despise or scorn. As a noun, buz is usually translated as contempt. It's translated once as a laughing stock also. So that gives you hopefully a pretty good sense of those 2 words. Ki, for edotecha, your edot, your testimonies. Netzalti, So I netzaled, I preserved, I kept, I cherished. Gam, also. Yashvu, verbal root is yashav, to sit. So also sat salim. A sal is a prince, a captain, a leader. So also sat princes. B, in me. Nidbaru, verbal root is deval, to speak. So about me they spoke. Avdecha, your eved, your servant. Yasiach will meditate, and you remember the fuller sense of meditation there. I hope I'll mention it to you again, just because it's worth going over, because it's quite a powerful concept actually. So in Hebrew, remember, to meditate, it can mean to sing, or to speak, or to mumble to yourself as if you were grumbling under your breath or complaining, or to what's the last one? Maybe that's all. Yeah. Oh, to sigh. That's the last one. Yes. Or to sigh. So your servant will, all of that, bechukecha, in your chokes, your laws. Gam, also, edotecha, your edot, your testimonies, sha'ashuai. Now, remember earlier we learned that verbal root sha'a, to play. Here it is again. The verbal root there is sha'a. And remember, it can mean to play, it can mean to stroke or fondle, it can have the sense of delighting in, and I think that's the idea here. Also, it's translated as like, they're my delight, your testimonies are my delight. ArtScroll translates it as, your testimonies are my preoccupation. I like that. It goes on to say they are anshe, and ish in Hebrew is a man, anshe means men of. If you want to say men in Hebrew, you say anashim. If you want to say men of, a construct plural, you say anshe. So your testimonies are anshe, the men of atzati. The verb root there, atza, means to, in this context, to counsel someone. So atzati literally are like my counsel. So he says, your testimonies are the men of my counsel. They're my counselors. Let's just scroll this down a bit, and we'll just put it right in the center. The next section, the 8 lines starting with the letter Dalet, and then we'll read the 8 lines starting with the letter Hey, and we'll be done this delightful study. Davka, a verbal root there is davak, and it means to cleave. It says that Adam and Eve, remember in the book of Genesis, a man shall leave his father and mother and davak, cleave, to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So that's that verb, davka, so cleaved, le'afal, to the afal. Afal is dust. What cleaved to the dust? Nafshi, so my nefesh, my soul. Chayeni, revive me, or like enliven me. Verb root there's chaya, to live. Ke devarecha, like or according to your devar, your word. Dorachai, my derechs, my ways. Sipalti, I sephared, I counted. V'ta'aneni. This is fascinating. Has a sense of like to reply or answer. How would you translate that? What's the idea there? Like, my ways I counted and I replied or answered. Maybe something to do with responsibility, a response. Lamdeni, lamad me, teach me. Chukecha, your chokes, your laws. Derech, the way of pikudecha, your precepts. Havineni, verb there is bin, and it means to differentiate between two things and therefore to discern or understand. So havineni could simply have the sense of like, give me understanding or make me understand. But that gives you a better Hebrew understanding of understanding what exactly it is. It has the sense of analyzing between two things, telling the difference, discerning that difference. V'asicha, and I shall siach, I shall meditate, beniflotecha. Remember that verb root pala, to separate, in the sense of miracles or the supernatural in general. Wonders, so I will meditate beniflotecha, in your wonders. Dalfa, This is a rare word also used poetically. The verbal root is dalaf, and it means to leak or drip. So dalfa, dripped, nafshi, my nefesh, my soul, me tuga, from tuga. What is tuga? It has the sense of like depression, really, or sorrow. It comes from the verbal root yaga, which literally means to throw aside or be thrown aside. And Hebrew has the sense of tormenting or afflicting or grieving someone. I think it's probably translated as sorrow in most English translations. So my soul, my nefesh, dalaft, like melted or dripped, mituga, from sorrow. Kai meni, verb root kum, to rise or raise up. So raise me up, resurrect me, ke devarecha, according to your devar, your word. Derech, the way of sheker, falsehood or lies. Hasel, remove. Mimeni, from me. V'toratcha, and your Torah, your teaching. Chaneni. A verb root, there's chanan, and it means to be gracious to or favor someone. So, like, how would you translate that? It's a very concise way of communicating a thought in Hebrew, and you need to add some words to flesh it out in the English. How would you do that? V'toratcha, in your Torah, chaneni. Like chanan, your Torah to me. I think New American Standard renders that as graciously grant me your Torah. Art Scroll renders it as something like and graciously endow me with your Torah, something like that. You can see how you can't do a literal word for word translation in the Hebrew. In situations like this, you need to add words. It's interesting, eh? Derech, the way of emunah, faith or believing. V'chalti, I bachard, I chose. Mishpatecha, your mishpatim, your judgments, legal decisions. Shiviti. Now this is a fascinating verb that he's using to describe his relationship with the judgments of God. The verbal root is shava, and it literally means on the same level. So if two things are shaveh with each other, they are on the level with each other. In different places in the Tanakh, you should look up the word. It's fascinating how it's used with different nuances in different contexts, but I'll give you a couple of them that most relate to this meaning here. The verb root shava in other places in the Tanakh means to liken, to compare, to equal, or to calm. Why? Because when you're on the level, so to speak, you are calm. It's interesting because even in English we have that sense. So here he says mishpatecha, your judgments, shiviti, I have done this. It's like he put them on the same level as himself, or he put himself on the same level as God's judgments. I think, how does that translate in different translations? That would be an interesting one for you to look up also, actually, comparing a couple of different ones. I think often they just translate it as like, I set them before me or something like that. But it misses the sense, really, especially the poetic sense. Devakti, so I devakt, I cleaved, or stuck, or bonded, v'edotecha, in your testimonies, your edot. Adonai, don't, tevisheni. Now there's that verb root again. Bush, like to be embarrassed or ashamed or even disappointed. So he says, all tevisheni, like don't put me to shame, don't let me be embarrassed or disappointed. Derech, the way of mitzvotecha, your commands, your mitzvot. Arutz, a verbal root there is rutz, and it means to run. So I will run in the way of your mitzvot, your commands. And yes, you'll notice I am inserting words as we go, because otherwise it's very mechanical and choppy. Literally just says, way your commands, I will run. So as we're reading that, we're translating as we go, right? In the way of your commands, I will run. Ki, for talchiv, verb root there's rachav, and it means to enlarge or broaden. Libi, my love, my heart. And let's go ahead and let's read this final section now. the letter Hey for this study. Horeni. What's the verbal root there? You know it. Yara. It's the verbal root for Torah. And here you can see obviously the translation of it is teach or instruct. Even in translations where they usually translate Torah, mistranslate Torah as law. Here they will translate the verbal root, yara, as teach. Because you can't translate that as law, the verbal root. It doesn't make any sense. So, rant over. Horeni, teach me, Adonai, derech, the way of chukecha, your chokes, your laws. Ve'etzrena, and I will netzal it. The noon is a weak letter, so it gets dropped. I'm sorry. I know that makes things hard. You will get over it. Ve'etzrena, and I will keep, I will preserve, I will cherish it. Akev. It's translated as until the end, but this is a little more poetic than that. This word akev means one's heel. So in Hebrew, your heel, it's like the extremity of you. It's the end. So the heel came to have the sense of the one's end. I will cherish it to the end. Havineni. Now there's that verbal root to understand in the sense of discerning or differentiating again. So havineni, like give me understanding. Ve'etzra, and I will netzar. Notice how the noon again gets dropped. Good thing I'm here to explain that to you, just to keep you from tearing your hair out trying to identify the verbal root and look that one up in your dictionary. Toratecha, your Torah. I will cherish your Torah. Ve'eshmarena, and I will shamar it, I will guard it, v'chol, with all lev, heart. Hadricheni, it's like cause me to darach, so cause me to walk or tread, benativ, in the nativ, which is like a path, of mitzvotecha, your mitzvot, your commands. Ki, for vo, in it, chafatzti. I chafatzt. What is that verb? Chafatz, it means to delight or take pleasure in something. Hat, verb root there is neta. Again, the letter nun gets dropped because it's a weak letter. So here we just have a hat, which neta is another one of those words that is used in, it has a pretty broad range of meanings contingent on context. Here it has this sense of, like it usually has the sense of stretching out. So let's read how that reads here. Hat, so stretch out libi, my lev, my heart. El, to edotecha, your edot, your testimonies. Ve'al, and don't or and not. El, to batza. What is that? What is batza? It's sometimes used in a neutral and sometimes used in a negative sense. Betza in the Tanakh can mean gain in a neutral sense, or it can mean gain by violence, injustice, or dishonesty. It can have that negative sense of illicit profit or plunder or greed. Here we can assume it has a negative sense. So maybe you could just read that as greed and not to greed. Ha'avel, a verb root there, aval, means to go over, to cross over, to go beyond. So cause my eyes to cross over. Here we have, sorry, I ruined it for you. I said the English before we read the Hebrew, sorry. Let's read the Hebrew, hopefully it'll be okay. Einai, my eyes, my eyes. So he says, ha'avel einai, cause my eyes to cross over. Merot, from ra'ayin, from seeing. Shav. What is shav? It's translated in other places in the scripture as emptiness, vanity, or futility. Be'drachecha, so in your derechs, in your ways, chayani. It's hard to tell if that says chayani or chayeni. I think it says chayani. So revive me or cause me to chaya, to live. We have 3 more lines in this beautiful poem, and we're done. So let's finish it off. Hakem. Verb root is kum, to raise up. So hakem, raise up le'avdecha, your eved, for your eved, your servant. Imratecha, your imra, what you have said, your utterance. Asher, that, there's that word, remember, that we learned earlier? It's like the word that takes you from the subject to the predicate, grammatically speaking. It's like that word with the verbal root to move forward or to go in a specific direction. So here it's moving us forward in the sentence. See that it's taking us in a specific direction. So he says, like, raise up for your servant what you have said, asher, which the yiratecha is for your yira. And that verb root there, yara, means to fear in the sense of reverencing or being in awe of. So raise up your word to your servant is that which causes reverence for you, is that which is how would you say it? How would you translate that? Asher liyiratecha, for your awe, for fear to you. Ha'avel, verb root there is aval, to cross over. So ha'avel, cause to cross over. Chelpati, my chelpa. Remember we learned that word disgrace. So my disgrace. Asher, which, and there it is again, asher, which yagolti, I yagad. What is that verb root? Yagal, it means to dread or fear. And it actually may be the root concept of that word we read earlier, gil, which is a sojourner, resident alien, an immigrant, a traveler. Why? Because when you are in a situation like that, you are vulnerable and you live in a certain state of fear quite often. So, ki for mishpatecha, your mishpats, your judgments. Tovim, they are tov, they are good, they're beneficial. Hine, behold. Ta'avti, there's that verb root again, ta'av, to long for, to crave, to have a very strong desire for. Lefikudecha, for your pikuds, your precepts. Betzidkatcha, in your tzidka, in your righteousness. Chai, again, it's hard to read. Does that say chayani or chayeni? Let's say chayani, which, again, means cause me to chaya, cause me to live, to be revived. And that is where we will leave this first section. Congratulations. I hope that was a meaningful reading for you. I hope that unpacked for you on a deeper level and hopefully even a more emotional level than ever before. Psalm 119, this famous love song to the law, to the Torah of God. Well, thanks for joining me. This is your Hebrew teacher, Izzy, and Hebrew Chapters with Holy Language Institute. Join me for reading on from here in this section, starting with the letter Vav in our next study.